welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews of just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Strikey Sisters for the Nintendo Switch. And if you haven't heard of Strikey Sisters yet, it's one in a long line of breakout style games, but definitely brings its own unique flair to the table. And despite it being just a breakout style game, it actually does have a bit of a story. Initially, upon starting the game, we're greeted by a fully voiced over cutscene wherein the sisters are alerted to the fact that their pet has been lost. And whether it's through a simple misunderstanding or open aggression, they're willing to beat the snot out of everyone they come across until they find their beloved pet. But as is typical of the genre, gameplay consists merely of moving your character left and right across the bottom of the screen to bounce into a rebounding ball to break blocks in order to beat each level. But that being said, the presence of enemies in this block-breaking screen should be immediately apparent. As the Strikey Sisters make their way down each of the game's 4 branching paths to try and find their lost beloved pet, they'll not only have to break all of the blocks in a given level, but defeat all of the enemies there as well. And while breaking blocks will drop coins, defeating an enemy can drop magic spells, temporary ball power-ups, or even open up certain chests to drop certain special items. So it'll be up to you, and potentially through local co-op, another player, to be able to navigate your characters to hit balls to break blocks and make the most of any spells and power-ups you can afford. But one of the additional differences that Strikey Sisters brings to the table is by having an actual playable character and not just a solid paddle. You can play and rebound the ball off your character by just moving it in front of the ball's path, or by using either the X or A button, you can strike at it with your sword or even use charged attacks to deal more damage. Using a charge attack though, while making the ball a little bit more devastating to enemies and blocks, will speed it up and maybe put you in a sticky situation, so figuring out when to use charged attacks or spells will be a bit of its own learning curve. But as previously mentioned, the game starts out with 4 different paths a player can select. And after beating any individual level, the next leg of that path will open up, providing you with not only more blocks to break, but new unique enemies with their own movesets to confront. And while your own spells and attacks and augmentations to the ball will be pretty much uniform through the entire game, the enemy complement in the game not only gets more and more diverse the further you make it down any path, but there's also a boss fight about every 3rd level or so. Moving on to the video and audio of the game, there's definitely a bit of nostalgia draw for anyone who's a fan of the classic SNES platforms, but more than merely grabbing at nostalgia, the graphics really do fit the style of game. And along the same lines as the diversity in the enemies and environments in this breakout style game, the attention to detail in both the video and the audio are actually really satisfying. There are quirky cutscenes every so often with what I'm assuming is intentionally bad voice acting just to give you that Saturday morning cartoon feel. And considering the difficulty level of this game, that kind of chipper, upbeat, and goofy vibe really did go a long way to keep me from getting any sense of frustration. But as you can see from the video footage, this game actually can get pretty intense, and some levels you might feel like you need that second player. But if you go back to the start screen and the options, there are 3 different levels of difficulty, and the current gameplay you're seeing is on normal, so if you either want to ramp it up or tone it down, that's totally doable. But all in all, while it definitely took me a long time to master these levels, even on the normal difficulty level, I'd have to say that I really enjoyed my time with Strikey Sisters. There's not generally a lot you can expect from a breakout style game, and I gotta say, I was actually really surprised with just the quality of this game. The controller layout is actually really intuitive, and the general goofy vibe is a good contrast to the actual game's difficulty. And the amount of diversity in both environments, bosses, and enemy complements really does a lot to keep each different breakout style gaming session feeling novel and unique. And should you actually find your lost pet and beat the game, which shouldn't take more than a few hours depending on your general skill level or the difficulty level you're playing on, there's also a wealth of achievements offered, such as collecting every single coin dropped in a single level or unlocking all of the monsters, that might give a certain type of player a large sense of replayability. But as this is still a pretty simple game, that does about wrap up the review of Strikey Sisters on the Nintendo Switch. So if you enjoyed the review, or especially if you found it helpful, feel free to throw me a comment or a like to show your support. And don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. As you can see, there are new and unique indies coming out literally every single day, so there's always going to be some new game to find out about right here. But if you want to see what I'm up to, check out which reviews might be coming up next, or even just chat with some of your fellow gamers, you can click any of the links in the bottom right corner of our channel's banner for Instagram, Twitter, Patreon, or even Discord. But anyway, this has been Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.